Welcome back to Say No to Lashon Hara, Day 64. The entire series is being done as a zechut for the continued health of Chana Tzima. And if you'd like to sponsor an episode, please send us an email at shlomo@weachazak.com. Well, we've discussed the idea of dvarim hanikarim, which means things which seem to have a sign which is obvious. It's clear that the Lashon Hara is supported by those other words. And we talked about when a person would be allowed to rely on dvarim nikarim and when not. There are two conditions that have to be fulfilled in order to be able to have the dvarim hanikarim be something that we could rely on in terms of believing Lashon Hara. First of all, the evidence that we're talking about has to be very specifically connected to the Lashon Hara, and it needs to be a very strong proof. So as an example, let's say someone hears Lashon Hara and you see that the person is, mildly upset. Does that prove that they did specifically the thing that you are thinking about? So number one, the evidence has to be directly related, and as well, it also has to be a strong proof. It can't just be like a small or maybe. The second thing is that when the evidence is presented, the person who's listening must also be able to themselves understand how valid the evidence is. So they need to be able to interpret the evidence as well. The Chafetz Chaim explains that that's true only with regards to accepting Lashon Hara. But just like any other case of Lashon Hara, where I know it for myself from my own two eyes, I'm still not allowed to share it. Here, even though Dvarim HaNikarim helps me know that what I heard was true, it doesn't mean I'm allowed to share it unless there's specific reasons which are constructive, which are requiring me to say something in order to protect somebody else. Otherwise, even though I use Dvarim Nikarim to know that it's true and accept it for myself and even act on it, I still can't share it with anybody for no specific constructive reason. Where does this come from? The idea is actually rooted in a specific story with David HaMelech. David HaMelech is being chased during the rebellion, and as he's being chased by Avshalom, he gets a report from Tziva, who is the servant of Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was the son of King Shaul. Well, Tziva, Mephibosheth's servant, comes to tell David and say that Mephibosheth actually is very upset about the fact that King David has not been killed, and he wants the kingdom to revert back to the house of King Shaul. Well, David HaMelech tells Tziva, if that's the case, you should be able to have all of the fields of Mephibosheth. You should get them instead of him. Well, David comes back and he sees Mephibosheth, and he sees that he's looking completely like he's living in Avelut, in mourning. He hasn't trimmed his toenails, he hasn't cut his hair, hasn't washed his clothes. And Mephibosheth tells him that the reason why he was acting in this way is because he was upset that David HaMelech had come back. Well, in the end, Mephibosheth paints a very different picture. He says that I'm here in this state of mourning because I was in mourning until the king arrived home safe. David HaMelech kind of accepts what he says and tells him, okay, you should split the fields with your servant Tziva. And Mephibosheth's only response is, you can let him have the fields completely. I'm just happy that you're back and that you're home. Mephibosheth felt that way because David HaMelech could have killed him as one of the children of King Shaul, but instead he fed him at his table and he took care of him. So you see that David HaMelech only accepts the report that he hears once he sees the sign Dvarim Nikarim. Well, this idea is called by the Chafetz Chaim not Dvarim Nikarim, things which are recognizable, but Dvarim Nikarim Mamash, things which are obviously and evidently and patently, clearly illustrative of the fact that the Lashon Hara that you heard about someone was actually true, in which case you'd be allowed to believe it if it had those two conditions we mentioned earlier, but you would not be allowed to share it unless there was a specific reason for doing so.